All right, everybody, welcome back to I'll Read What She's Reading. I'm Reggie.
I'm Michaela.
And I'm Kennedy.
And today we have one of our favorite authors with us on the podcast, the one and only Carissa Broadbent. Carissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here with all of you.
Oh, thanks. We are so excited too. This was like a dream to get you on here, and we cannot wait to chat with you. I actually just finished Songbird and Heart of Stone like 10 minutes ago.
Oh,
and
sorry.
I'm freaking out.
No, seriously.
I'm freaking out. So I'm like, this is perfect. We can't wait to chat with you. So before we kind of get into the nitty gritty questions, we'd love to just kind of hear your story and kind of tell us how you became an author.
Yeah, so I always really enjoyed telling stories. Like when I was a kid, I used to write like in elementary and middle school, like really dark stories. Like there was this one about a girl dying alone in the woods that like definitely got some parental calls, from the teacher. And then as I got into high school and college, I like got busy and I stopped. But then when I was like 22, 23, and I was out in like corporate America, and I had that thing happen that I think a lot of people around that age have, where I was just like, oh, this is it forever. Like, this is life now. And then I thought I should write a book because the idea, like, I felt like I needed something else, to work towards. So I wrote a couple of really bad books, and they were published for a while. They're no longer available for good reason. They're not good.
Oh my gosh.
And then in like 2018, 2019, I started writing Daughter of No Worlds, which ultimately became the book that like really started to kickstart my career at that point. And a couple of years later, here I am.
We are obsessed with your work. We love it. And we all started with Serpents, right? All of us started with Serpents, and we just loved how unique it was compared to some of the other things we were reading. And so we are just so glad that you decided to become an author. And I love like your twists on things. They're just so fun.
Well, thank you. That's like very high praise. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I just saw an interview that you had done. I think it was at a bookstore. And you were kind of talking about when you decided to write Serpents, you had done Fae, with Daughter of No Worlds, and you had seen Fae done so much, and that you decided to do vampires. And let me just say, thank you so much. I love the vampires, and I love the Serpents world so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always like a fine line. So especially when you're indie, like now I kind of have more freedom because I have an audience, that is easier for me to like speak to. But like, especially at that time, and especially when you're indie, like whenever you're about to write a book, I was a full-time author, it was my livelihood. So you have to like balance what you want to do creatively, but like also have to be able to evaluate in a very clear-headed way, like, is this something that people are actually going to be into? And I was a little nervous about high fantasy vampires, because I hadn't seen that as much as like contemporary romance, like paranormal romance vampires, which is great, but not like my world really. So I was nervous about it. So I'm glad that people hopped on board.
Yeah, I feel like reading your books, every time I read one, it just feels like a breath of fresh air. And specifically with like Crowns of Nyaxia, it's like, I love how brutal and dark it is, while the characters still have this like realness and like lighthearted side to them. It's my favorite. So I'm just gonna be patiently waiting for your next book, because
I'm impatiently waiting.
Yeah.
I'm like dying for the next book.
I hope that you love it once it's here. It's done.
Yeah,
It's done. I mean, I'm revising it still a bit, but it's done. So
I cannot wait.
I can't.
I am so excited for it.
I'm so excited to read it. So while writing these books, what does your like writing process look like, and how do you draw inspiration? Like, what do you draw inspiration from?
So at the core of all of my books is like the emotional journey is like always the thing that is most important to me. And then another thing that's important to me is I never want to write the same book twice. Like I always want to do something kind of unique and different and like push myself in a new direction with every book that I write. And so that's usually where I start is I kind of come up with the first thing I come up with is the theme. Like, what is the emotional core of what this book is exploring? Like, what is the main thing that I want someone to take away from this book? So I come up with the theme. And then, of course, you know, plot wise, I'll have like a very big picture, like, especially in the Nyaxia series, you know, I'll have a very big picture sense of like what each individual book is about. And then I take that theme and I really try to interrogate it through the characters. And usually it's at the crux of the relationship between the male main character and female main character. And that's also like kind of what them kind of going back and forth around that theme and exploring it through each other is usually how the romance kind of develops. And then, of course, I'll have like my inspiration for big, you know, action set pieces or like big plot moments or whatever. And I'll piece all those things around. I'll create an outline that's like a very big picture plot beat, meaning like this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then this happens through the end. But at like a scene level, I will kind of trust my gut, you know, and readjust at a scene level like as I need to. And then I'll have like 7 mental breakdowns and like be certain that my career is over and I'll never write another good book and like cry to my husband and cry to my agent and cry to my friends. And then I have a book.
Well, I love that. I love that process. I feel like we've interviewed some authors and I feel like everyone's process is completely different. Mm-hmm. And so it's really fun to like ask this question because it's genuinely so interesting to hear how you write your books.
Yeah, every time I'm reading a book, I'm like, how do people come up with this? And so it's really cool to like draw the curtain back and take a look into it. And especially like knowing the plot and characters in your books, I feel like it's really cool to, hear you share that. So we didn't start the episode off with this, but I'm sure if people are listening, if you have read Carissa's books, you know what books she has out there. So tell us about your different series and like the reading order and how that works, because I like the way that you have them set up, especially with Crowns of Nyaxia.
Thank you for saying that, because I know that some people find it like confusing, which is my fault for being like the Crowns of Nyaxia series, I always say was like my yes and series, because when I was first conceptualizing it, I just like staked out the bounds of this enormous world and I wanted to give myself lots of room to play. And I was just like everything that I thought could be cool, like everything that I thought could open the door to like cool possibilities. I was just like, yeah, we're doing it. So that's how I ended up with like this very expansive kind of sprawling series layout. So my first series, the War of Lost Hearts series, is pretty straightforward. It's a trilogy. It's like epic fantasy with like very strong romantic overtones to it. The first book is Daughter of No Worlds, which is like the one that most people recognize. So that's pretty straightforward. Trilogy, epic fantasy. The Crowns of Nyaxia series is a 6-book series. And the first 2 books focus on one of the vampire kingdoms, the House of Night. So there are 2, like there's a main couple for that duology. And then books 3 and 4 focus on the House of Shadow, which is another vampire kingdom. And then the spotlight shifts to a different couple for those 2 books. And then books 5 and 6 will focus around the House of Blood, which is the third vampire kingdom, and we'll have like another spotlight shift. But the fantasy arc goes across all 6 books. So I always try to specify that, because people will be like at events or whatever will be like, I feel like there was like a lot unresolved at like the end of book 2. And I was like, yes, because we've got 6 books. We got 4 more books. You gotta bear with me, guys. We've got like some big crazy stuff happening here. And then there are 2 spin-offs. There's Six Scorched Roses, and there's Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Both of those books were designed to be optional. They were both designed to be like you could read them first if you wanted to, or you could skip them. But some people like to read Six Scorched Roses in between books 1 and 2. And some people like to read Conqueror after book 2. I would say if you want, you might want to read it before book 4, maybe, but it's also optional. So it's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Because, yeah, I think I read Conqueror after the second book, and then I read Six Scorched Roses in between 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. But was it you that was saying that you would recommend Six Scorched Roses after or before?
I said before.
I think I said before as well. Yeah. And I have to tell you that Six Scorched Roses is one of my favorite novellas I've ever read.
Oh, it was perfect.
It was so perfect. Their story, oh my gosh, it was absolutely incredible. It was so good.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
I very much wrote it for myself. I wrote it because, all right, this is going to make me sound like unprofessional. I had committed to be in this anthology, and I was like a little bit like, I kind of forgot about it, and then it was coming up, and I was like, shit, I have to write a book. And I kind of thought, I really thought that nobody would really be on board with it. Like, I kind of thought, well, at that point, only Serpent was out. And it was like, Hunger Games, vampires, like high octane, whatever. So I was like, people are not going to be loving this, like, kind of quiet, like, story about like this scientist and this grumpy Dracula guy. Like, but I loved it. So I just wrote it for myself. I had like no expectations of it, really. So it really means a lot to me that so many people have connected with it in a way I really did not expect.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. Mm-hmm. And cool that like you didn't feel any pressure to do it. Like that just makes me even love it even more.
Yeah,
me too. So that's really cool.
I feel like when you write stuff for yourself, I mean, not that I'm an author, but it shows how much people really enjoy it, because I feel like everyone I've seen, like my friends on Goodreads, are obsessed with that novella, and I think it just comes through how much you just wrote it for yourself, and it just really shines. And I just think it's honestly so good, especially for how short it is. It didn't feel rushed at all. It just felt like perfect pacing, everything.
Thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
We could just sing your praises all day. So
I love it. This is great. Keep it coming. This is wonderful.
Yeah, we can be your hype girls.
Yes, thank you.
So between all of your series, do you recommend a certain like reading order? Do you recommend the Daughter of No World series first, or the Crown Nyaxia series first? Do you have like a preference, or is it just kind of whatever?
I don't. I actually am really, it's kind of funny because even the question that you just asked about the reading order for the Nyaxia series, like I am a very chill, like as a reader, I'm a very chill, like contemporary romance series. I read them out of order all the time. Like even ones that you're kind of not supposed to read out of order, I do it, whatever. So it's almost like readers have a much stronger opinion about like when you're supposed to read certain things. So for me, between the two series, I mean, whichever one strikes your fancy. Like if you're like kind of more of an epic fantasy person, you might like the War of Lost Hearts trilogy first. I will say the Nyaxia series is getting progressively more epic as we go, because that's just who I am in my heart. So it's really up to you.
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Answer.
Yeah. I know. I don't think, because they don't really, they're like two completely different series, which is like amazing. And that you're like so diverse with your writing, because I feel like there are some authors, I still really like them, but I feel like their series kind of like blend together a little bit. So it's awesome that they're just like completely different, and I guess whatever you're feeling is what you should read.
I'm happy with whatever someone, picks up. I hope that they find something in there that they enjoy.
I don't know if you have noticed, maybe you have, but the War of Lost Hearts series, I feel like has been gaining so much momentum on Book Talk recently. And honestly, so me and Reggie have both read that series, and Michaela's in the middle of it. And we are so happy to see that obviously the Crowns of Nyaxia series is super popular, but to see the War of Lost Hearts trilogy become as popular has made us so happy, because it's so incredibly good. Max is one of the best male main characters. He is just this ooey gooey cinnamon roll. He's just so great. And so I don't know if you've noticed that it started to gain a little bit more traction. And maybe is it like, do you feel like it's the same popularity as Serpents, or?
I've definitely noticed that it's like more popular than it has ever been, which is really amazing, for me, because that book, we're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of the publication of Daughter of No Worlds. And one thing that I always like to point out, like for any aspiring authors or anyone who's maybe earlier in their author career, I mean, the whole first year that Daughter of No Worlds was published, I made like maybe barely 4 figures on it, for like a year, my career has been a real slow burn, so it's really wonderful to see like that series still gain traction. It's like really close to my heart. I love it very much. I did get a lot of people. I've been on tour for the last 5 days. I did have a lot of people coming up to me about that series, which is so lovely to see. It's not I can tell you from a sales perspective, it is not as popular as the Nyaxia books are, but it's getting like close, which I honestly never thought would happen, to be honest. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I remember finishing the first book of Daughter of No Worlds, and I was like, why are more people not talking about this book? And I have like a very nice, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. That series is just, or trilogy, whatever you want to call it, one of my favorites ever. And same with Nyaxia. And yeah, I mean, if anyone listening hasn't read any of your books or has read some and not the other, this is your sign to pick them up, because we're obviously obsessed with them. And yeah, just hearing like the heart behind your books too is just makes me love it even more. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet.
Yes, you're welcome.
I really try with every book that I create to do something different. Like, I don't want to be writing the same book over and over again. And I don't want, even just as a writer, like I get bored. That's part of the reason I set up the Nyaxia series to be the 3 sets of 2, because then that was my way of kind of progressing this big scale plot like I like to as an epic fantasy author, but still switching things around. Like, I have a lot of admiration for authors who can write 8 books about the same couple or the same person, because I feel like, damn, I'd be bored. I would start to feel like, okay, I'd like to explore something else now. And I'm really appreciative that my readers have been like so on board with like, all right, like we're going to hell. Like there's going to be monsters and ghosts and like skull creature guardians and like there's crazy gods and like gross, dark necromancy magic and stuff. And I'm like, I'm writing it sometimes and I'm like, I don't know. Are people just here for like the hot vampires? Like, because I'm going to be like,
oh, I'm here for it all.
Yeah.
Right? Why not both?
Yeah, why not? Well, and like you were saying, like the 3 sets of 2, we always talk about on the podcast how much we appreciate and love duologies because they never feel like rushed or, I don't know, there's just something about duologies that we just love. And so I feel like the way you have the series set up is it's like you're getting the best of both worlds, where you're getting this incredible storyline that's continuing throughout all these books, but then you're also getting that like little sweetness of almost having like a duology, which I love so much. And especially after finishing Songbird and Heart of Stone, I'm on the edge of my seat.
We recorded her reaction finishing it because we had both finished it.
I know. We were waiting for you to get on here, and I was just sitting here like,
oh, so this is raw. This is raw for you.
Oh, yeah. This is raw.
Sorry.
I am like, I couldn't have finished it at a more perfect time.
I was
questions I have for you.
Yeah, we have so many questions. But I was driving in my car listening to the audiobook, and I finished it, and I paused it, and I just screamed, Carissa, because it's just, the ending was so good. It was so good.
Thank you.
It was so good.
I'm going to make something very you're going to see this now, and you'll probably see it in other duologies too. I also love duologies, and part of the reason why I love them is because when I write with plot structure, the midpoint is very important to me. Like, you will now notice that in all of my books, around the 50% mark, sometimes it's like 60%, like, because my midpoints tend to be a little bit late, there's like a big change. Someone makes like a big decision. So I like duologies because over the course of the series, like, you're ending at a big moment halfway through the main arc. So like, you're finishing the arc of one book, but there's like in the finishing of that arc, something major has changed. And then a duology as a series is basically structured like a before and after. And mine, I usually try to think of it as the first book is someone coming to terms with what they are not. And then the second book is them figuring out who they are. And I love that as like a structure.
Yeah.
It's like very relevant, meaningful to me. And then for the Nyaxia series, it's like the 3 duologies kind of function as like the beginning, middle, and end of a trilogy. So like, you zoom out and the structure makes sense that way too, which this all makes me sound like a lot more put together than I actually am when I'm actually creating this stuff. So just a warning there, but it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I just have to say, when I finished the first book, The Serpent and the Wings of Night, I don't think I have had such strong of a visceral reaction in my entire life reading a book. I like will never forget. And I so badly wanted to reread those before I started the third one. And I didn't, but now I almost it makes me even want to reread them even more after this one. And so it's one thing that I think is really cool about your books is I can always remember where I was and what I was doing when I read certain moments in your books, which is like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember exactly what chapter it is. Like in book 2, I remember driving on a road trip with my husband and I was reading it and I just started uncontrollably sobbing and he was like, what is wrong with you? Like, it's so cool that I feel like I can pinpoint certain moments in your books with certain moments of where I was. And yeah. So it's really cool for me to say now I remember exactly where I was when I finished book 3. I was about to talk to you. So, yeah. Big fan.
That's like the highest praise. It really is.
Oh, I'm so glad.
We get, yeah. I feel like we all have reactions to your book. And that's my favorite part about reading is reading these books. And even though they're fiction, having such strong reactions to characters and like crying, laughing, like you write such great banter and I love banter. Like I love laughing at books, especially where The Crowns of Nyaxia is a darker series. I think it's so fun when you add like sprinkles of like funny moments. I think that's just like makes me giddy, makes me laugh. So I think you do such a great job of evoking these emotions for your readers. And I think that's just like such a wonderful accomplishment. So yeah, we love, sorry, we're just like hyping
we're
you
just
up.
gushing.
I love it.
Entire
This is great. I'm loving it. Just keep it coming. But yeah, thank you so much.
I also think what's cool about the Crowns of Nyaxia series is because you have it set up the way that you do, they feel different, but also it all makes sense together. Hopefully that makes sense. Like comparing, the first 2 books to just the one book we've read from these two, they feel so different. The settings feel a little different, but it feels the same. So the fact that you kind of say that you don't want to write the same book twice, it shines in this series, but also you have such a talent of making it feel cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
that's my biggest insecurity. So thank you. Thank you for validating me. I will try to keep it up. I've got 2 more now because the 4th is done. But yeah, so we'll try. Really excited for those last 2. So
I think I can speak for all 3 of us when we say you're an auto-buy author and you'll always be an auto-buy author. So
100%.
Whatever you write, we're reading.
Thank you.
Yes, for sure.
This is why I get to have a career. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. We know that, well, first of all, we're really grateful for Podium and you for sending us your audiobook of Songbird and Heart of Stone. And we loved it. I dual read and listened. we're curious if you listen. Do you listen to your audiobooks?
Absolutely not. No. And that's not a testament to the amazing narration work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, such immensely talented people work on those audiobooks, and I know that they are incredible. But the idea of like listening to a stranger read my words back to me just like makes me want to peel off all of my skin and eat it. Like it just seems like torture to me. Like it makes me wonder how like actors watch their own movies. Like, can you imagine being an actor and being at a premiere and having to sit in the front row and watch yourself on a freaking 50-foot screen or whatever? Not 50, that would be a really big screen, but you know,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I can't, but I know that they are amazing, and I've obviously heard snippets and whatnot.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they were wonderful. But that's just something we've never asked an author before, I don't think. And so we were really curious to know, because that makes a lot of sense. Like even listening back to our podcast, like when I have to go edit an episode, I'm like, oh, I don't like listening to myself. But
are you involved at all with like the process of the narrators, or do you kind of just leave it up to like Podium, for example?
So as a professional, I generally believe one of my favorite things about this job is that I get to work with so many talented people. So I believe that the best thing that you can do in most situations professionally is like find the best people and then let them do their jobs to the best of their ability, which means giving them the input that they need and that they ask for, but then also backing off and letting them do their job. So Podium is very good about like, I was very involved in like choosing the narrators. You know, they give me options and make recommendations, and then, you know, ask for my input. And then they also ask for my input on things like pronunciations and whatnot. So yes. But then when it comes to the actual creation of the audiobook, I let them do their job, and they do an excellent job at it.
No, it was great. I think the narrator for is this spoiling? I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. The narrator for the character, I think, really just like brought her character to life.
Yes, she's so good. And then especially when you consider, I knew from the outset this was going to be a tricky one to cast because it's a 6-book and she does the spin-offs. So like there's so many different characters that she is narrating who are so different from each other. Like someone narrating Araya is a very different voice than narrating Misha. And I think that she did a really fantastic job with that. And then similarly, very different than who we're headed for books 5 and 6. So yeah, she's excellent. She's so good.
I love that you have the mentality of delegating, because that just allows you so much more time to probably do the things you love, which is writing books. Instead of kind of micromanaging everyone around you, you're able to put so much more thought and time into your actual books. I love that.
Yeah, it's cool to see the behind the scenes because I'm always wondering. So
yeah, it's also just sanity, you know, preservation too. And also I was a graphic designer and I worked in marketing before I was an author. So I had been on the opposite side. Like I know how annoying it is when you're trying to do your job and someone is like, make the logo bigger. Like, I think this shade of green should be like more yellow, or like, what if it was a tree instead of a flower or whatever. And you're just like, let me do my job. Yeah. I never want to be that person,
That's awesome.
Needing the perfect bookish gift for a loved one or for yourself this holiday season? Say hello to Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a monthly book subscription service that curates 5 to 7 newly released books to choose from in a variety of genres. We can always find a good book that piques our interest. This month's picks were all so good we really had a hard time choosing which book we wanted, but all of us ended up choosing The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter, and we're really excited about this one because it's going to be our book club book for December. Think Knives Out meets a holiday rom-com. If you want to follow along with us or are curious what other books you can find from Book of the Month, you can sign up for Book of the Month today with the code TINSEL, that's TINSEL, and get your first book for just $5. That's right, just $5 for a brand new hardcover. Plus, this month they are also including a free gift when you join. Let Book of the Month know we sent you and choose I'll Read What She's Reading podcast in the survey after you pick up your book. Happy reading!
So we kind of talked about all of the books. We have to know who your favorite character is to write out of all of your books. And then also who is your hardest character to write.
Ooh, that's a tricky question. This is such a cliche of an answer to say, like, they're all my favorite, but they are all my favorite in different ways. Some of them, like, Aurea was very challenging at first because she was very different than other female main characters that I had written, and her voice was very different. So that was challenging for me, like getting to know her when I was first writing Serpent. Misha was easy, you know. My life changed very dramatically in between Ashes and Songbird. I had a baby and moved, and like my career changed a lot, and like so having that break definitely helped kind of reset, and it was a lot easier for me to get into her voice, even though she's so different than the voices I had before her. And then there were also like certain side characters that like every time they're on screen, I just have so much fun writing them. Septimus is one that I like every time he's around, I'm just like having a blast.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, he's fun. I'm trying to think. See, now I'm trying to ask myself the same question of like who my favorite character is. I would say, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about that I love about Vincent. I love him. I love him.
I also love Vincent.
Yes. I love him. I feel like, I don't know if it was after the second book, I just like started gushing about him to these two, and they're like, "Do you like him more than you like another?" And I just love him. I just feel like the men in your books are just extremely well written, and yeah, I'm in love with all of them. So
the fan art you have on, I'm like, oh my gosh. I love the fan art, and it's nice to sorry, this is kind of like a little bit off topic, but do you work with one artist exclusively, or do you kind of like switch?
I have like no self-control when it comes to art. I love working with and supporting artists, especially right now. I know it's very tough for artists right now because of generative AI and all of that crap. So I really love commissioning artists. I went way overboard with Songbird and commissioned so much art. Like basically every time I was on Instagram and saw an artist that I liked, regardless of whether they had like 500 followers or like 10,000, I would be like, "Hey, do you take commissions? Do you want to draw some vampires? Like, here's a document. Draw whatever you want." Like, it's great. I do have a long-standing relationship with like certain artists that I will go back to and commission over and over again. Like Alicia MB on Instagram. She has drawn portraits of all of my characters, and we have more coming. And she's wonderful. But I love working with artists. It's like my favorite part of this job.
I don't think you could ever go overboard with.
You did not go overboard.
No, never.
give us more.
Yeah.
Oh, I have more.
So
I have more. I have a lot of like, so what I did was I created like this master document with like both character descriptions, and then I had 5 scene descriptions in there, and I basically just sent it to all of these artists and was just like, draw whatever here looks interesting to you. Like it can just be like just them hanging out, or it can be like any of these scenes. And what I didn't really consider until I started getting art back was like, some readers are very particular about what they consider to be spoilers, like things that I maybe, again, as someone who is not sensitive to spoilers, would not really think of as a spoiler per se. Like some people don't want to see any scene depicted from the book at all, even if it's out of context, like nothing. So a lot of it I've been sitting on until like now, and I will like still put a little slide in front of it and be like, you know, this is a scene from chapter 30 or whatever, you know, so if someone wants to avoid it, they can. But I was like, there was a bunch of it that I was like, I need to wait until after the book is out, at least, before I start posting this stuff, because I think some people would prefer not to see it. But yeah, there's so much. There's so much more.
I love it. It was great getting a visual for the characters and kind of like how the scenes are set up. So I'm personally a big fan of
Yeah. I feel like I've always been able to see in my mind the characters very well based off of how well you write about them, but it's cool to see how other people interpret the characters as well. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I like that better. So yeah, keep the fan art coming.
Oh yeah,
and along
I will.
the lines of, okay, yeah, we'll be just keeping an eye out. Along the lines of characters, if your any of your series were to be turned into an adaptation for TV, movie, which series would you prefer, first of all? And then, do you have any potential fan cast? Like, do you have certain people in your mind while you're writing? Maybe, I don't know. I'm just curious how that works in your answer to that.
So I actually usually do not have like strong specific people that I have in mind most of the time. Like actually when I work with like Alicia, for example, on these portraits, like she always has to like send me a bazillion pictures to like force me to like to nail it down to like a specific face. So of course I know features, you know, this person has like dark curly hair, or like they have this color eyes or a scar or whatever. But in terms of like actual specific people, I am very flexible. I also will say I am very open to like other interpretations of characters and like visualizations. So like the only character I've ever had a pretty strong mental image for, like I definitely kind of imagined Rain as like a Jason Momoa type, which I know some people.
Ooh, okay.
I imagined like not even necessarily specifically him, but like that type, like a big kind of burly, kind of gregarious guy. And it's always funny when I say that at like events, because sometimes like half the room will be like, like totally not what they were envisioning at all, which is fine. It's just me, but usually I do not actually.
No, I can see that with like the features that we know that Rain has, because he has like almost, isn't his hair like almost red? It's like really dark. Yeah. Okay, I'm picturing it. I can see it.
Yeah, and he's like hairy and like big, and like kind of like not. He's handsome, but he's not like pretty. You know, he's got like very strong features. That's just always how I kind of imagined him.
No, I like that description. Now I'm just gonna picture Jason Momoa with red hair, dark red hair, right?
Yeah.
Would you prefer the Crowns of Nyaxia or the War of Lost Hearts to be adapted? Is that like even what you're thinking or what you would want, or would you turn it down if that option was presented to you?
I would not turn it down. I am realistic about like, let's be real here. A Court of Thorns and Roses is one of the biggest series in the entire fucking world, and they cannot manage to get that thing made. So let's be realistic here. I mean, any adaptation of these books would be super, super expensive, and it would require like crazy, and Hollywood is just sounds very frustrating, frankly. So like, if someone comes to me or comes to my agent and is like really passionate about it and they want to throw us a bunch of money to like try to make it happen, hell yeah, I'm on board. The one thing that I feel very passionately about that I would love an animated series based on any of my books. I'm a big animation fan, and I think it's an ideal medium for fantasy adaptations.
I love that. What style of animation do you like envision? Because there is a wide variety of animation styles. Do you see like, I don't know if you watch like anime or like more, I don't know.
I can't think of the names, but I can see
claymation.
Claymation. That would be funny. Well, I watched, actually part of the inspiration when I first was kind of toying with this idea of doing vampires in like a fantasy setting, I was watching Castlevania, and which is very good. It's like way better than it has any right to be, frankly. Like it's so good. So yeah, something like that. Like right now, because the second season came out, I'm very into Arcane. Honestly, I just love animation as like an art form, and it's just such a great way of adapting fantasy to me. Like they do such a wonderful job. So maybe one day that would be a dream for me.
I feel, I wish I had all the money in the world, because I feel so passionately that books I don't know why books aren't into like turning into movies more, because I feel like they're throwing things out that are kind of garbage in my opinion, or they're redoing things that don't need to be redone. And I'm like, there's so many good books that could be turned into these wonderful productions, and there's a fan base already for these books. And so I just think, you know, they're really missing out on these opportunities right now, especially with books being so big right now. It's definitely, you know, a phenomenon where like everyone's reading right now, and I just feel like they're missing out on all these great business opportunities. And I wish I could just produce these books into movies.
I know. I mean, I get it, because it's just so difficult to get things made, you know? Like, I worked at Microsoft before I was here, and it was just like, even just anyone who's worked at a big corporation, just, you know how hard it is to get things done just in like one business. Now imagine that you have to string together like 10 freaking Microsofts to like make a movie happen, and then spend like millions of dollars, and like there's so many different creative visions involved. And then also, you could have the most faithful adaptation of a great book and have it not be a great movie. I mean, they're different mediums, you know? So I understand it, but yeah, that's another reason why sometimes I'm like, I don't know. If someone came to me, sure. But like, I am not eager to go get out there in Hollywood and deal with that bureaucratic like nightmare. It just sounds exhausting to me.
It seems like a whole new world.
Yes.
Definitely crazy. But we will be, you know, sending out good vibes your way. And I think an animated series would be so cool.
Yes.
So cool. I love it. So you have told us, you know, you have 3 more books coming in Nyaxia. Is that correct?
Yes.
6 in total, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And you finished the 4th, which impatiently waiting. Do you have, I mean, I know you're busy and it seems like you've got a decent amount on your plate right now, but do you have any future plans for after Nyaxia is finished?
So I have some author friends that are always like, oh, I have like so many ideas and like not enough time to write them. And I'm always like, that's great for you. I tend to be very focused on what I have on my plate at the moment. And then like when I finish it, I'm like, okay, what do I write? Which is like why it was really scary before I wrote Serpent, because I was like a full-time author, but I like had just kind of become a full-time author. So I was like, oh, shit, I better write something good that people like, because this is my job now. I've been toying around with some like very big picture kinds of ideas. I think I want to maybe try a little bit of a setting shift. Like I said, I don't like to write the same thing twice, and I don't like to write, like I always try to do something that's a little bit different and like a little bit memorable for people. I want people to be able to remember it a year from now, 2 years from now, even if they're not remembering the specifics of the plot, because God knows that I don't as a reader. But I'll always remember like, oh, this, I thought it was like really cool and creative, and like, wow, this one part gave me this really major emotional reaction. I always want to do something like a little bit different and memorable. So I have some thoughts about some new settings, kind of doing a little bit of a twist on the romantasy genre, maybe.
Okay, cool.
I was just about to ask, would you ever write in another genre?
I really love writing fantasy. I can't really see myself doing, maybe one day I'll do something contemporary, but I can definitely see myself doing like space fantasy. And when I say space fantasy, I don't mean sci-fi, because I can't do science. So I mean more like Star Wars versus Star Trek, like definitely kind of more like magic and swords, but in space. With kissing, you know, I can definitely see myself doing that.
I love it. I would eat that up so fast.
Well, I hope that you do, because that very well may be where I head next. We'll see.
I love
that. Is so cool, because I especially Nyaxia, like I feel like I catch myself a lot reading your books and being like, whoa, like you were saying in the beginning, like, yeah, let's go to hell, and you paint this picture where it's so cool for my mind to try and build your world as I'm reading, because a lot of books I read, I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, like I've seen this before, or, you know, maybe not anything too complex, but I really love specifically the Nyaxia series and just how dark and brutal it is. There's just so many cool elements. So it's really interesting to hear that you would want to maybe move into this, you know, space world, because I can only imagine how insane and wonderful it's going to be. So that's
Probably
really cool.
very insane. That's like, I like to get a little weird. I'm like I consider myself to really be like kind of an epic fantasy author at heart. I love writing romance, but like I really appreciate how readers have hopped on board with kind of my weirder impulses with the fantasy and world aspects. So hopefully,
we're here for it, and it works. Yeah, it works.
Absolutely.
We love it.
We've said this so many times already, but your books feel new and fresh in the best, like they feel new and fresh, but also they feel like I'm at home. Does that make sense? They have all the elements of romantasy that I love, but you sprinkle in these new ideas and these different concepts, and it just makes it feel fresh.
That is exactly what I aim for. So thank you.
Maybe I've already said this, but I think you writing like your crazy, you phrase it as like your craziness. I think it's giving people what they want, but they didn't know they wanted. Because yes, I feel like some authors, at least the newer ones, are writing what they think their fans want or what their readers want, but really we want something different. And so that's what you do with your books, is you're giving us something we didn't know we wanted.
Solid agree.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Has there ever been a time where you feel like you've gone too far and you've had to pull yourself back? Where you're like, oh, hold on, I have this idea, but never mind.
I definitely have questioned if I've gone too far, but like I don't pull myself back. There were definitely times when I was writing Songbird, and there was like, I'm not getting specific here, so no spoiler, but there's like, I mean, it's the underworld, and there's like rivers of blood, and there's like trippy, like mind hallucination sequences and crazy stuff like that. And I was like, I'm writing it, and I'm like, Carissa, are people really going to like be with you on this? And I was like, too late, already wrote it. Like, we're already doing it, guys. And yeah, it's going to get, we're going to keep getting a little weird, but I can't help it. I am.
I loved it. I loved every bit of the weirdness in Songbirds. Give me more. Yeah. I'm ready for more.
Okay,
you
good.
went too far at all.
Buckle up,
Yeah, that's why we love your books so much, and what sets you apart, I think, from so many authors. So,
thank you.
And like I said, we could sing your praises all day. But to kind of like step back from your books for a second, what is your current read right now? Are you reading anything? Do you have time?
The answer, no, I do not have time. My TBR just is perpetually long. And like, there's so many books that like, I know I will love them, but I just haven't like got into them. So right now I'm reading Assistant to the Villain, by Hannah Nicole Meyer, because she was kind enough to join me on tour a few days ago in Pittsburgh, and she's the sweetest person, and I had such a lovely time with her. So I'm really loving that book. It's like so fun and like fresh, and kind of like an interesting take on romantasy. Talk about someone who did something a little different, like fun. I have so many others. I've been meaning in the vampire fantasy world to read the second Empire of the Vampire book for a long time, because I loved the first one. And I know I'm going to love the second one, but it's also very long. So there's definitely been moments where I was like, I don't have the brain for this. Like, I need to be a little bit more rested. So that might be my read after my upcoming deadline, like going into the holidays.
Oh, that's exciting. It's always fun hearing what you guys are reading, because you're kind of like us. We've read Assistant to the Villain, so it's fun to hear that you are reading it right now, and that you try to make time for authors and what they are writing. but I bet you're just so busy. I couldn't imagine trying to write a book and then trying to read other books and all of that stuff.
It's a lot of words. Sometimes you're worded out, you know, like, and a lot of times I do find it easier to read non-romantasy books at times, just because I really get into my own head. Like, I get really bad imposter syndrome when I'm writing. And when I'm doing that, sometimes it's tough for me to read romantasy, because I'll be like, oh no, this is like so good. Like, I'm loving it, but it's so good and I'll never be this good. My career is over. That's it.
What? No.
Yeah.
Never.
So, thank you. Bless you. But I'm not a very discriminating reader at all. Like, I read all genres, you know, thrillers, women's lit, contemporary romance, just everything. And I think that there's always something to learn from that. Like, that's where you get fresh ideas and fresh inspirations, is by reading things that are kind of outside of the ecosystem of the subgenre that you're living in constantly.
I love it. Sorry, this is also a little bit off topic. Do you listen to music while you like write, or you're drawing inspiration for your books and characters?
I listen to a lot of music when I'm thinking, like when I'm brainstorming, and I get a lot of my like emotional inspiration from music or while listening to music. I cannot listen to lyrical, that's the word I'm looking for, lyrical music when I'm writing, because I find it distracting. I can only listen to like, do you ever listen to the binaural beats music? Like, that's just like, like it's like, just like techno beats. Like, there's a deep focus playlist on Spotify, and that's all I can listen to when I'm actually writing.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't think I've ever listened to that while reading. I can't listen to lyrical music either while I'm reading. Same. It has to be like, you know, fall vibes for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Kind of music.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to try and see.
The techno.
Yeah. I'm sure that stimulates your brain, though, and gets you, like, your brain moving.
Yeah, it's very, like, focused. Like, and it's very, I guess what I'll call, like, emotionally neutral. So, like, sometimes, like, if I'm doing it, like, a battle sequence, I'll listen to, like, battle fantasy music, you know, like soundtrack music. But then the problem is that, I mean, I'm writing a lot of different scenes, and then it's, like, distracting if the emotions don't line up to, like, what so that's why I like the, like, kind of bland focus music. I will say there was a whole sequence in, I almost just said something I was not supposed to say, book 4, whose title has not been revealed yet. And I listened to Hallelujah by, like, Jeff Buckley's cover of Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah.
For, like, 3 hours straight on loop while I, like, wrote this, like, epic sequence of that book. And that's the only time I've ever done that.
Why did that, like, give me chills? And I don't even know what you were writing.
I'm so excited.
Will we know? Like, when we read it, will we know? Will we be able to read it and be like, oh, this is when?
I think you will.
Yeah, we'll be like, cue the music.
Yes.
It's an excellent cover. It's like a really good rendition of that song.
Ooh, oh man, I'm even more excited than I was.
So excited. Are you allowed to say when it's planning on being released, or are you not allowed to say?
I can't say. It's going to be, I don't know when this is airing, but as of speaking, on November 26th, it is going to be revealed relatively soon, from what I understand from my team. And it's hopefully not as painful as a wait as some people are speculating.
Oh, love it.
Love it.
Okay. That's really exciting.
Perfect. Well, like we said, we will just be impatiently waiting. And
I'm excited.
We just really appreciate you coming on here, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. It really means the world to us, and it's like such an honor to be able to talk to you, because I mean, I'm speaking for myself. You are definitely like one of my favorite authors ever. So this is like a pinch me moment. So thank you so much. And everyone listening, go check out Carissa's books if you haven't already, because if this hasn't inspired you to, then this is your sign. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is, I mean, being able to do these kind of things is a pinch me moment for me, you know? Like, even as little as a year ago or 2 years ago, it was like not something I ever thought was possible, to be able to like come on these kinds of podcasts and talk with wonderful people like yourselves, or go to events and stuff. So I'm really happy that we got to do this.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll be sure to like link all of your everything, socials and stuff in our show notes so people can follow along with you, check out your amazing fan art. And yeah, thank you so much. Best of luck with all that you have coming up.
Mm-hmm. We're really excited for you. We love all the success that you're getting because it's well deserved.
Oh, thank you. Thank
100%.
you.
Yeah, thanks again. We really appreciate it. And everybody, we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.